Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Thursday, September 1st. Oh boy, I almost didn't get that out, but I know one thing. The sound of September rings in my ears. Football season, baby. And like every Thursday, I'm joined by that handsome gentleman on the other side of me, the guy with the haircut, Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. How are you, Doug?
As I've heard pretty much every expression there is about getting a pretty dramatic haircut. So no question about it. And so yeah, but it's okay. A little bit shorter, and it's odd. I always seem to get it like right before the beginning of the football season. I don't even know why that is, but it's like when you were a kid. What is it, the holidays? Your mother always made your or your dad make you go get a haircut, but those days are kind of gone now. For a lot of reasons. But no, so yeah, good haircut. Football starting tonight, Ross. We got some good games
Oh,
going
yeah.
tonight on Thursday already. Friday, okay, one or two okay. And then but 5 straight days of college football.
Yeah. And
Boy, oh boy, can't beat that.
Thursday games tonight, we covered them on Monday. So if you
Right.
missed it, folks, our video we taped on Monday for the Winner's Circle podcast with me and Doug. We have free winners in the Penn State, Purdue, and the West Virginia and Pitt game. So make sure you tune in for that. I do have a premium paid selection. If you watch this video before Thursday evening, I do have a paid selection on my site right now in the Pitt, West Virginia game. Doug, you got anything going on tonight that you want to throw?
Well, you mentioned so you're taking a position on a game that I talked about for free, and I'm taking a position on the game that you talked about. Okay, that you gave out free. I have a position on that game as well at DocSports.com at the Doug Upstone page. So yes, we got some things going on right out of the gate.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll talk about those positions on Monday. Anyway,
Right,
uh,
right.
uh, first full week of the college football season. I'm glad week 0 is behind us because that was just an absolutely horrible card. I'm not going to continue to beat to death this whole situation with Nebraska and the continual boneheaded decisions that Scott Frost makes and why he still has a job, et cetera, et cetera. It's getting old. Okay, let's talk about something new this upcoming week, Doug. Anything stick out to you when you look at this opening week card?
Well, the two things that or the one thing, and there's two games involved in it that stands out is two of the most anticipated games are Notre Dame at Ohio State and Oregon visiting Atlanta to play the University of Georgia. You know, the first game is a two top five teams. The second game is two top 11 teams, and in both cases we got spreads of 17. Okay, and so I just I mean, I know the hype. I know what a lot of people think about that stuff, but I don't know. I just from those two games myself, I'm having a little bit of a problem getting the emotional value, in terms of interest to watch them. I'll watch both of them for sure, just like you will, and like many of the people watching this video will. But it just, as opposed to something you're really looking forward to, it just takes a little bit of the pizzazz, at least, out of it. And hopefully, I mean, everybody has their thoughts on the game, but let's just hope. I'm hoping like at least for decent games, so don't get these, 38-6 blowouts and stuff like that. What do you think about that, Ross?
Yeah, well, Sean Higgs took Ohio State earlier this week against Notre Dame, and you can't argue that point with them. I can't make honestly, I can't make a case for Notre Dame. I don't know about laying the 17 with Ohio State either. This is a game that I most likely will just sit and watch, and observe. My gut feeling, Doug, at this point with that particular matchup is that I think Ohio State should win that game handily. If you look at the fact that Notre Dame, their returning production leaves a lot to be desired. And again, I don't understand. Maybe you could help me out with this. All the good recruiting classes that Notre Dame has had with Brian Kelly, obviously he's not the head man there, but prior to him leaving, all these top 10 recruiting classes, yet they can't seem to find that top-notch quarterback. I mean, look at last year. They had Jack Cohn. Now, that's a guy who lost his job to the current quarterback at Wisconsin, whose name escapes me, but I know he had a horrible year last year. And I just can't believe that Notre Dame, being Notre Dame, can't find that top flight quarterback that wows you. It's always a guy that is either a game manager or somebody that doesn't threaten you vertically, or somebody who gets things done with their legs, not so much their arm. What's your feeling, Doug, on
Yeah,
that?
well, I think part of the problem was the recruiting by Brian Kelly, and also or just say the lack of success, which then kind of made the direction of the program go that way. And so, in order to in order to get a top flight quarterback or top flight receivers, they kind of have to go hand in hand. And so when you're lacking in either or, and that's one thing Notre Dame has had, not a lot of success with, of getting top flight receivers. They had a couple of years,
Yeah.
where they did well, but by and large, not much. And so the top receivers, the best athletes, they go to the schools that have the quarterbacks, okay? Because it's going to enhance. Because let's face it, and in today's world, it's even more so, is that with the nil deal going on now, these guys are just looking, how am I going to get to the NFL?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to go to a school that has a mediocre quarterback, okay, that's not going to enhance your position to go to the NFL, especially if you have the talent or the presumption of talent. So I think that's where the problem is. So Notre Dame then, I think, kind of gave up on trying to get good tight ends. I mean, excuse me, good receivers, but they have tremendous tight ends. Like, for example, Mike Meyer again coming back
Yeah.
for his junior year, and I mean, for years, I mean, literally decades, they've had really good tight ends at Notre Dame. So I think that's been the design of the program. But going forward, Marcus Freeman doesn't care about that. He says, I'm going after every top recruit in the country. And so that's kind of the mindset. Whether they get them all, we'll see. But that's the mindset going in. So I think you'll start to see better players on the perimeter for Notre Dame. And then, they might then start getting better quarterbacks then accordingly.
Yeah. Chase Claypool wasn't a bad receiver when
Right,
he
right.
played me
He's
at
he's
Notre
yeah.
Dame
I mean,
recently.
but he wasn't great at Notre Dame. He was good,
No, that's where
but
I was going with this. I
yeah,
think Michael Mayer is going to be a better NFL player than a college player for the
yes.
reasons you just touched upon, Doug. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that top flight quarterback at his disposal, and that's going to hurt his production. But I'm sure the NFL scouts will look
I think
beyond
they
that.
already know.
If we already know that, I'm sure that they do as well. The other part of that equation with Notre Dame is I question how well they're going to do in the transfer portal. And I question how well they're going to do when they have to compete with these other premier programs that are offering a lot of, what do you call them? The NL deals, NIL deals,
NIL, yes. Yep.
NIL deals. Because the thing with Notre Dame is, yes, they're able to recruit top flight athletes, but also have their school policies really, how could I put this, constrain
Right.
their ability to recruit those top players compared to the Oklahomas and the Alabamas and the Georgias and the LSUs of the world. I mean, if that wasn't the case, I don't think that Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame for LSU. I think that Brian Kelly saw an opportunity. It's a football gold mine there at LSU, and also he's not going to be handcuffed when it comes to recruiting as well. So,
Well,
it's,
I can tell you this: I'm pretty certain, and one of the major drawbacks at Notre Dame, because I know this for a fact, that is that freshmen have to take calculus.
yeah,
So if when you then you apply to Notre Dame, you're trying to get in, they make the decision based on your high school grades and stuff like that,
yeah, yeah,
whether you can pass calculus as a
yeah,
freshman,
yeah,
because it's a required class. So, and I'm gonna go on a limb here, Ross. I'm going to guess calculus is not on the list of things you have to do at LSU in order to get into school.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong on that, but I'm just
Yeah, I would, a stab in the dark. I think that, there's a good possibility that that's a correct assessment. So, yeah,
that's
you get it, Doug. I get it. Just want people out there to realize these are the types of things in college football today that we didn't have to account for in years past when handicapping. And it becomes even more difficult. And I mentioned this to you on Monday, and then we'll get on to our free picks. But I mentioned this to you on Monday. It's worth mentioning again. Our toughest obstacle in the early part of this season is really latching onto the transfer portal and what players are going to be impactful. There are certain teams that don't have a lot of returning starters, but they made a killing in the transfer portal. How long is that going to be before those teams gel? Because again, a team like USC, 13 players they got in the transfer portal, number one class in terms of quality in the transfer portal. If you look at the returning starters, it doesn't look like they're an experienced team. But if you look at the quality of transfers they brought in, they are an experienced team. Now, Doug, the question I ask you is, do we sit and wait for teams like that and watch them and see how they're going to develop early on, or do you jump right in? I mean, my personal feeling is I'm a little skeptical of jumping on board a team like USC, for example, even though I picked them to be a real good team this year. But in terms of covering sport point spreads early on, I foresee a team like that to be overvalued based on just what I just touched upon, the transfer portal.
yeah, and I think the key to that too, and we'll only know this as time goes on, is I think it's made much tougher also when you have a brand new coach.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
In
I think
addition
that's
to,
probably the key element. I think we'll see, certain coaches or certain programs have a rhythm in terms of, they start filling needs more so than just grabbing the best available athletes. So you'll see patterns from these teams as we
yeah,
go along with coaching staff like that. But when you have a brand new coaching staff, and if you had a program that wasn't great, which USC wasn't,
no,
that's I think we talked about this. I mean, the returning talent at USC isn't fantastic,
no.
so to make them a top 5 or top 8 team to win a national championship, I got no ability to think that's going to happen,
Yeah.
with this team at
They
all,
may win
no
the
matter who they brought in.
Pac-12, but the Pac-12 again probably is not going to have anybody in the playoff at the end of the year. So anyway, that's just my opinion. Uh,
I got one more thing just
sure.
also to mention about. I'll just throw it because I know this for a fact. Notre Dame and Ohio State playing this week. When Lou Holtz was there in the '90s, and they had a home and home with Ohio State. Is that because of Notre Dame's how they only allow certain types of students to get into the
Yep.
school, and they had changed it, by the way, from the time they won the national championship in '88 and then into the '90s, is that he had signed 8 starters that were on Ohio State's team those 2 years to come to Notre Dame, but they couldn't get into school because of their grades.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's
You
it's
have to have
remarkable.
that special type of athlete. It's almost like being in the Ivy League and playing major college football.
Right.
When it comes to recruiting, that is.
Yes.
Again, they're still getting very good athletes, but and they're still getting their share of 4 and 5-star recruits. However, not in the enormity that the other schools are able to do for the very reasons we just discussed. Anyway, Doug, Cincinnati and Arkansas, I can't wait for your opinion on this one and your free pick on this one, because this is an intriguing matchup. Of course, Cincinnati made it to the college football playoff last year. Desmond Ritter, their quarterback, is now playing on Sundays. And what do you got on this game? Because we're looking at an Arkansas team that a lot of people are high on this year, and they're laying almost a touchdown against the Cincinnati team.
Yeah, that's good. It's going to be a really nice matchup to fit in the mid-afternoon slot. Okay, for college football viewing, it's going to be 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. And as you mentioned, Arkansas is a 6.5 point favorite in this one. And honestly, it's probably, I don't know if it's the most, the game I'm looking at forward to the most, but it's in the top three for sure. So I think there's a lot of good things here. Now, nobody needs to feel sorry for Luke Fickell. Okay, he lost Desmond Ritter and 9 other players that were drafted by the NFL, but he has built this program, Ross, up to the point where when they go to the Big 12, they're not. It's not going to be a big step up, for
No,
them. I mean, he's brought in really good players, more underrated in the larger, scope of things. But these guys they can all play. The major strength of the team going into the season is going to be their offensive line. Okay, that's what's going to keep them together on that side of the ball, because they got some good road graders, a lot of experience, and so that'll hold it while the quarterback situation gets figured out. A couple of the perimeter guys get worked out as well. Defensively, they did lose 6 starters, definitely lost some very good talent. But if you remember, the thing about last year's team is that they were on the 2 deep chart. They were as good as anybody in the country, maybe outside of Georgia, Alabama, and maybe Clemson, and maybe Ohio State, but that's about it. Okay, so their 2 deep was fantastic. And so the 6 guys they lost, the replacements are going to come right in and play, because they played last year, a lot of these guys, and got some, not the most minutes, but a number of plays. Now, as you said, Arkansas, boy, it's a really good team, and they just, it's one of those deals, they're in the wrong division. I mean, that's plain and simple. So, but I tell you, who's more physical than Arkansas? Okay, there are very few teams in the country that are. Sam Pittman, I'm a big fan of his, and this guy loves that type of football. I mean, they bring it, and so down in Fayetteville, I mean, you better have that chin strap nice and tight, because they're going to come after you for sure. Now, last year, they were 7th in the country in rushing. They got a huge offensive line. They love to run the ball. The key for them in this game and throughout the season is going to be the play of quarterback KJ Jefferson. He's really the one with the offense. Now, he's a great quarterback as a runner in the RPO game, really, really skilled at it, very deceptive with the ball. But he got better last year as a passer, and the key for their season, in big games like this one, is how he completes the intermediate balls and the seam routes. If he's on target with the amount of speed that they have on the perimeter, I think this Arkansas offense can go to another level. Now, like I said, I think this is going to be a fascinating matchup. But how I'm looking at this one, I think for Arkansas, the ability to be playing at home and having more overall experience is going to be the difference in the game. The Cincinnati team for the last several years has feasted on turnovers, but with a little less experience, and they're playing a team that doesn't turn the ball over a great deal. The Bearcats will have a harder time manufacturing offense in this one. I think this is going to be a fourth quarter game, Ross. But I think Arkansas is going to get that field goal somewhere later in this later stages of the fourth quarter in an excellent confrontation and cover the 6.5 from the point spread to make them a spread winner.
couldn't agree more. And fantastic analysis as always by Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, you mentioned the transition going to the Big 12 isn't going to be a big adjustment to them because of how Luke Fickell has built this team. They're a physical team. They play great defense on an annual basis. That's not something you see in the Big 12, which is more of your spread offense and who could outscore who. On the other hand, if you took Cincinnati and put them in the SEC, even next year or the year after, they're going to have a harder time with their transition period, in my opinion, because you're finding more athletic teams, more deeper teams, and teams that actually play defense. So that's an interesting matchup. But I agree with you. I saw this line, and here we are. An Arkansas team, I think, was 8-5 last year, including their bowl game, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere in that area. Correct, Doug?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And they're laying almost a touchdown against a team that went to the playoff last year. Yeah. They're begging you to take Cincinnati. So I agree with Doug on that play. My game. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to talk about that Oregon and Georgia game that Doug was just touching upon. And there's a reason why I avoided the part of your question about Oregon and Georgia, because I was going to talk about it anyway. That game will be played on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Currently, Oregon is the number 11 team in the country, according to the AP poll, and Georgia is number 3. Similar to Notre Dame and Ohio State, we have two highly ranked teams, yet a 17-point spread exactly in both games. The game will be played at Mercedes-Benz Field in Atlanta. It's deemed to be a neutral site game, but we all know that when Georgia plays in Atlanta, that they're going to travel well, and that's going to be a pro-Georgia crowd, which is going to be a huge boost for the Bulldogs, considering all the players they lost from a season ago. Oregon, their head coach, Dan Lanning, an interesting side note, he was the former defensive coordinator for Georgia, and last year's Georgia defense was just phenomenal. And in addition to the fact that how many of these guys got drafted in the first couple rounds of the NFL draft. However, he doesn't have the talent level on that side of the ball this year at Oregon that he possessed at Georgia. He may in due time, but that's not going to happen overnight. Also, Bo Nix is not one of my favorite quarterbacks, Doug. I've mentioned this time and time again. I don't mean to pick on the kid, but when you're depending on Bo Nix to win you a national championship or even a conference crown, the kid, I should say, makes way too many mistakes. He struggled at times at Auburn. He looked good at times as well. Basically, I term him to be an erratic quarterback. Now, maybe his maturity level is better. He produces better in Oregon, in a new system, in a new environment. I highly doubt it. I can't help but think they're begging you to take Oregon here. The number 11 team in the country getting 17 points on a supposed neutral field, which we know is not neutral. I'm going to take Georgia, and lay the 17 over Oregon for my free pick on Saturday, September 3rd. And Doug Upstone, he's on the Arkansas Razorbacks minus the 6.5 over Cincinnati on Saturday. That's also a mid-afternoon game in college football. Doug, tell the folks where they could find you, what you got going on, how you've been doing of late.
Well, we're talking college football now. I know you didn't like week 0, but I did. I went 2-0, so I'm happy with that. So that was a good start. So this week I got 5 plays altogether. I got one, like I said, I mentioned one on Thursday. I got a 6-unit best bet on Saturday of one of 3 plays, and then I also have a play on Monday. And one of the things that Docs is doing, change it up a little bit. They got a special going on right now. So normally that's $99 for a week. This week only $45. So you get all 5 of my plays for $45, including my 6-unit best bet. So something great to take advantage of. You know, I've had 2 straight winning seasons with college and pro football combined, 4 of the last 5. So, Ross, I am excited as could be for the start of this college football season. And I got my notepad and everything right over here to my right that I write notes on games when I'm watching them, different details of things that I can refer to later. And I think the books I have go back probably 15 years I've been doing that. So, you know, I love to just get into the games, start following them, and learn everything you can about the teams to help you as you go down this road during the season.
And hopefully in those books, you don't have any college football overtime losing record like you have in basketball.
That's another book. I keep that one underneath someplace else that I only pull out when I need to.
You don't need to dust that book off because you get so many games.
No. There's never any dust on that book. No.
Anyway.
And maybe that's the problem. The first hint of dust.
Yeah.
That's what comes about. So, all right. So I know. I think you said you had 7 plays going this week. Is that right?
Yeah, I got one tonight. I'll have on Saturday. I'll have 5 selections, including the 10-star top play. I'll also have a play on either Sunday or Monday, not both. Not really thrilled with the Monday matchup, Clemson and Georgia Tech. Doesn't do anything for me. Couldn't they got a better game than that for Labor Day night? I mean, geez, whiz, watch. It'll be a great game and it'll go down to the wire. Anyway, Georgia Tech fans would hope that would be. Anyway, rbwins.com is my website. 5 picks on Saturday. 1 tonight, Pitt and West Virginia. one on either Sunday or Monday, possibly a pick on Friday. So anywhere from 7-8 plays in the opening week of the season. I know a lot of people like to go conservative. I was conservative in week 0. How's that? So I'm ready to get a little bit aggressive here in the opening week, full opening week of the college football season. Best thing about going to my website, folks, I guarantee all my single and multi-game daily packages. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, I will credit your account back whatever your purchase price was, and you could use that toward any future purchase at my site. On top of the fact that if you have not registered at my website, take 45 seconds or so to do it. You just go to the home page, click on the register button on the left-hand side of the page. And once you get registered, you'll get automatically $100 credit, which you can use toward any future purchases, whether it be a football season package or a daily pick, whatever way you prefer. Just do me a favor, folks. Be honest with yourself, and don't take advantage of the $100 offer if you have no intent on paying whatsoever, even if I go 7-0. That's all I ask. Now, I can't prevent that from happening. I'm honest with you. I'm fair to you. Be fair to me. Anyway, Doug, knock them dead this weekend. And let's come back on Monday and have a lot of good news to report. And until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin of the Winner's Circle podcast, we like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless. All right, Doug.
All right.